Hey there, YouTube Nation. It's Jordo. Where can I start? I just got a message from a friend of mine. She always says the strangest things. She said, "Are you friends with the Olsen twins?" And I immediately leapt to say yes because I wanted to see where she was going with it. But the funny thing is, if I reach back in my memory, of course, there is a connection between me and the Olsen twins. Um, it goes like this. I was young. I was 20. I was working with somebody named Scott Sartiano and his partner Ali Forterecci. The two of them were working with an attorney named Jack McHugh, who I had been interning for as a lawyer. And I was just a young, almost going to go into paralegaling, but decided that I was more of a paraplegic. And when my boss, Jack, asked me to take this job working for Scott and Ali, he gave me an opportunity to travel around the country. I went to 20 different campuses in different, 15, 20 different states across the Southeast and the Midwest and the East Coast. And I took two different lines of clothing on the road. One was the line that belonged to Scott and Ali called Genetic Denim, and it was a new jeans line. And actually, the line didn't exist. We were selling other brands just to get a flavor and a feel for selling jeans. So I was selling a lot of the other brands that were really high end at the time. And I also sold on another van. I sold Fat Farm, Baby Fat, and other hip hop jeans labels. So that was my experience for 2 months. And while I was on the road selling genetic denims, brands, like we would be like, "Oh, we got sevens. We got 7 for all mankind." And then when we ran out of sevens, people would be like, "Do you have any sevens?" And we'd be like, "No, but we got Yanooks." And Yanuk was like a line that, obviously I didn't really care about fashion at all. I didn't have anything that moved me. I liked money. I liked the ladies. I didn't make any money, by the way. And I just felt kind of weird being in fashion and, getting behind making money. It was new for me, but I also sold the Baby Fat Farm, and I went to black colleges and campuses. In that experience, I was a little less afraid, but then I was like, oh, Rockaway. I knew that I was the whitest kid alive, so it was kind of challenging for me to believe that I should be selling that product to that demographic too. Any case, I had so much fun. Just looking back, it was a wild adventure. And Scott and Ali, Scott owned One Oak nightclub, or Butter, and Scott and Ali both were hooking up with the Olsen twins. Scott and Ali were 30, 25, 29, whatever, and the Olsens were probably 18 or 20 because they were at NYU. I was probably 22 now that I think about it. And because my friend, so I'm 1 degree from knowing the Olsen twins 20 years ago. While I was on that trip, a couple of funny things happened. I was driving in Chicago, and I was trying to get from Kinko's to cut those 4, a 8.5 by 11 sheet paper, which you cut into 4, and you have 4 little hand flyers. So we were doing flyering, and I went from Kinko's A to Kinko's B, and because the one Kinko copy machine the cutting machine was broken, and I went over to I'm driving down like the highway from Chicago's first Kinko's to its second Kinko's, and I had just met the rapper Lupe Fiasco in the Kinko's. He was still up and coming at this point, hadn't really signed and done things with Def Jam or Kanye West yet. But he and I talked for a little bit, which is funny. He gave me one of his CDs. I was like pumping it on the ride. And then I was on my way to the other Kinko's, and I see behind me like sirens, and I can't hear because my music was so loud. I wasn't listening to hip hop. I was listening to like Earth, Wind, and Fire. I pulled over, and it was a second before I could pull over because there was no shoulder lane. Sometimes that shoulder is just not available. So I finally pull over, and I turn around, and there is a police officer with a gun on me. And I'm like, he's like, step out of the car. I get out of the car. He's like, get in the back. I go to the back of the vehicle. He goes, open the trunk. I'm like, he's like, where are you going? I'm like, Kinko's. He's like, where are you coming from? The other Kinko's. These are flyers for the hip hop jeans sale. Anyway, he let me go, but I mean, I definitely got a feeling that cops get scared too, and this happened to be not for nothing. Just pointing out the facts. This police officer was a black guy, so just not for nothing. I didn't see him thinking that I was a white guy when he, pulled me over. He probably realized only after he got to me that I was a white guy and not a high risk person. But why did he pull me over? Because I was driving without the headlights on. I think the great thing about that experience is to know that, it's dangerous out there sometimes. People get scared for nothing, and they get overly scared. And thank God I was able to, to experience something like that, to recognize the truth of what goes on out there in the streets when you have a car and when you're in Chicago. I'm sure you have heard about some of the over-aggressive police activity around the country, and there's a documentary on Showtime that talks about it's just one of those sad stories that I can't even talk about. What else? As the trip for 2 months wore on, I started to realize that I was not like really going to stick with this job. So I kind of did like my last trip upstate New York. It was in like Ithaca, the town where my dad went to Cornell, and I kind of drove around the campus. But when I came home from Ithaca, I drove down. I was driving down in a snowstorm to Manhattan, and the car. I did my first sort of in my life car accident, and we spun in kind of a 360 rotation on a snowstorm, and we bumped into a divider. I don't know where that divider was, it just stopped the road from going onto the side of the trees. So, I mean, I guess I must have realized at that point that I was tired of doing such a high-risk job. And thank God, when I got back to New York, I just called them and said, guys, I can't do this anymore. And that was the end of it. And I gained so much experience traveling this country. I went to so many different parts of this country, from Texas to Arkansas uh, to Wisconsin and everywhere almost in between, and also all along the East Coast. And I went to black schools. I went to white schools. I really went to a lot of this country, and we picked up in our first town. We picked up a girl from Texas, and she came with us and helped us do our job because we were this girl was like taking a semester off. So it was like a 4-person team, and our bosses were in the city dating the Olsen twins, occasionally flying out to help us, but it was definitely an adventure, that's for sure.